Joining the show today is one of us by way of a grand total of 49 games played in a Minnesota Wild uniform. He also played for 6 NHL teams, which is one short of our favorite suitcase, Mark Parrish, and has a Stanley Cup ring to show for all of it. Currently serving as a studio and color analyst for NHL Network and Sportsnet Pittsburgh, Mike Rupp. Rupper, thanks for jumping on with us.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Nice little intro there. Mark Parrish, he's 7, huh? Yeah.
I mean,
I feel like, so I've had the Devils twice. So
do we count that?
I don't know. Does that count as like maybe 6.5 teams? I don't know if you get like some sort of credit for that, but whatever.
That's fair. And I mean, but you know Parrish, right? He's going to come back in and he's going to be like, yeah, but were you ever traded for Luongo? And
that's true. That's true. Yeah, that is very true.
Now, first question we open up with here for anyone that has any familiarity with it is the Minnesota Wild logo and how people are just fascinated by, like, is it trees? Is it a bear?
Yeah.
We had a player tell us it's a UFO. What did you see the first time you looked at that logo?
I didn't really overly think. I saw the stuff in there with like the river. I saw the trees. I saw those things. I'm like, oh, that's really cool detail. And that took me away from wondering what kind of animal it actually was, so I never really thought about that. But, it doesn't matter. It's just wild, man. You're out in the wild. Maybe that's a better way of looking at it, right? Like we're out in the wild, not like this is a particular wild animal. I love the logo. The day I saw it, I still do believe I'm one of them that does like the kind of throwback North Star colors with that logo. I think it's a perfect match. But it's one of my favorite. I got my Wild jersey actually right over here from when I played for the Wild. It's one of my favorite. Got it hanging up. So
awesome. Well, speaking of Wild, our podcast name is Fellowship of the Ring for our Lord of the Rings fandom. I wasn't sure if you had a particular nerd itch or nerddom that you wanted to share. I don't know. I know you Napoleon Dynamite thing back there with Bo for Pedro, but is there like a movie series, book series, or just you collectible, anything like that that's in your passion?
Yeah. It's kind of funny you said that. I got made fun of the other day because I'd never seen Lord of the Rings, and everybody was like, wait, what? How do you not see Lord of the Rings? I'm like, honestly, I don't know. I just haven't. So it's on my watch list once the playoffs kind of end here. But yeah, I mean, I'm so kind of my nerdisms, if you will. I'm a big Mario guy. I've got like every Mario game ever. I got the Switch now, and they could come out with a new game that's called like, Mario Rock, and I'm buying it. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. If it looks interesting, doesn't look interesting, but I love all of like the different ones. You've got the different Mario games, and they have the playoffs with the different characters. Like they have, Toad has his own one. They have Paper Mario and all these different, we've got every Mario game possible and play those, usually beat the game within the 4 days of playing, probably like hours a day. So that's kind of my thing. I like Star Wars. I like Star Wars. Those are kind of like the main things. And I actually, funny, I like Legos a lot too. My kids and I would do Legos all the time. I get some Lego sets of I'll get like the Bowser Lego set and just kind of sit there and just veg out and like do Legos. It's funny because Billy Guerin and I actually share his son and my son were like around the same age when we played together in Pittsburgh, and we would talk about it. And Billy would have Star Wars parties. Billy lived in a great house in Pittsburgh, and he had like a movie theater in the house. And I remember he invited Mason and I over to watch the movie with Liam, his son, and him. And we got in there and we got like popcorn and everything. And then Billy comes out with lightsabers. And he hands the lightsabers, really nice house. So he hands out the lightsabers to the boys. And he's like, I have one rule. And you're thinking it's going to be like, don't eat in the movie theater. Don't have drinks in here, whatever. He goes, the only rule is every time there's a lightsaber fight scene, we have to fight at the same time. And so anytime the lightsaber scene happens, me, Billy, and our two boys would get the lightsabers and just start fighting. So yeah, it's those are kind of the main things.
I need to be part of one of those watch parties. That sounds fantastic.
That's pretty amazing.
You got to tell me, does Billy have like any costumes hid away? Does he like occasionally pull out Chewbacca or something when he's sitting down there in the dungeon watching Star Wars?
No, I don't think. I mean, he very well may. I haven't seen him. But my nickname with Billy is Chewbacca. He calls me Chewy. And so I remember when we were in Pittsburgh and we used to watch like clips and say the night before there'd be a clip and it'd show me on the forecheck, and that was kind of my game, right? Like just chip it in and go and get a hit. And we'd be watching the clip, and then Billy would just in the back be like, it was just funny because the whole team's watching and it shows me getting it on the forecheck, and Billy's just like just start making the Chewy noises in the background. So his nickname for me is Chewy, and he says it pretty much every time I see him.
That's incredible. And
Yeah,
I mean,
awesome.
on the Pittsburgh topic, I gotta ask you, Rupper, because I saw this pop up recently. The story about your fight with Zdeno Chara. Just lay it out there for our listeners.
Yeah, so it's the kind of the foundation of it is it was our first game. I was on the Penguins' first game playing the Bruins since that nasty Marc Savard hit, right? So there's a lot of retribution that wants to be had. Members it was on the front page of like the Boston Herald, and they had a picture of Matt Cook said wanted, like dead or alive, like not on the sports page, like literally on the front page of the newspaper. So we're going in there. It was a crazy atmosphere, crazy buzz. Didn't know what was going to happen, and so we get into the game, and Cook ends up fighting Sean Thornton the first shift, so kind of puts that to rest. But Zdeno Chara, being the captain, I think he wanted to, do his thing too and lead and to say like he wasn't good with it or whatever he wanted to do. So I remember he lined up with me on the face-off and asked me to fight, and we were winning like 1-0 at the time. So I said like, no, Z, like I'm not fighting right now. But he asked me like really politely though. It was weird. And he was like, he didn't say like, I've had many guys, they're coming up to you and they're yelling, there's like spits flying everywhere, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna, blah blah blah, kick your ass or whatever they're gonna say. Mm-hmm. His thing was, he goes, may I have this fight? And I go, I look at him, I go, what? And he goes, can I please have this fight? And I'm like, oh, well, I mean, it's very nice of you how you asked. But no, not right now. We're winning. And I said, Z, I'll give it to you in the third period though. Is when the game's situated, I understand what you're doing. And yeah. And so like literally a shift or two later, he asked me again. I'm like, no, it's still not the third period, buddy. And eventually we end up, I think, extending the lead to the point where I kind of need to do it now since I've already told him. At least I lined up with Sean Thornton, and I remember he was like, hey, center ice face off. And Sean Thornton leans in with me and he goes, hey, the big man wants you. And I just kind of lean back and look behind him, and Z's back there. He's like, come on, please. And I'm like, okay. And so then I don't know why he did it. Like I squared off and I had no chance. And, he ends up landing up on top of me at the end of the fight. I was fine. He didn't really hit me in the face, hit me in the helmet. Like it was hard enough, put me down. And he's on top of me at the end, and his face is right here. And he's like patting me. He's like, thank you so much. Thank you very much. I'm like, this is the most polite ass kicking I've ever imagined in my life. He's a gentleman. We joked around about it later. I seen him. My son Mason, his favorite player was Z actually. And when I was playing for the Wild, I wasn't playing. I was out with my knee injury, and we were playing the Bruins at the XL, and I said, Mason, like, let's go down and meet Z after the game, and went down after the game. And, my son has a picture of me getting beat up in the fight signed by me and Z hanging over his bed. So I don't know, take that for what you want. Like my son enjoyed his dad getting his ass kicked. So whatever.
I mean, were you
role models?
What's that?
What, were you a hard ass? Like, does he have reason to want you to get beat
No,
up?
no, I'm like Mason. Like, I'm not really sure what we're doing here. But he's like, he's my favorite player. It's cool that my favorite player's fighting you. I'm like, all right, but I lost that fight. But yeah, no, it's all good.
That's probably the most chivalrous way to ask for a fight I've ever heard in my life. I'm sure it wasn't quite that nice when you had the line brawl with the Devils and Rangers. I remember talking to Ryan Carter here in Minnesota about his take on how that all kind of started. Like, how do you remember kind of how that kind of came to be?
Yeah, so there was build up before this because there was actually the game before. I want to say to start the game. I feel like this kind of gets lost in it too. I don't know if it was to start the game, but we had simultaneous fights the last time we played too. And then if you went back before that, I think Cam Jansen and I started off the game with a fight the time before that. So it was like there was one fight to start the game. The next game there was, two simultaneous fights, and then there was the three, obviously, to start that one. There was build up there. We started our fourth line in New Jersey, and I don't think Pete DeBoer liked that, and that's how we kind of had our simultaneous fight prior. And then so now we're at MSG, and Pete starts his guys, and John Tortorella. I remember him coming in the room, and he's mumbling under his breath and swearing, and just he's all ticked off, and he just says like, "This is our." I remember him vividly saying, "I don't know, what you guys. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I hate to do this. I hate to put anybody in harm's way." But he's like, I have no choice. Like, and he goes, because we had Marion Gaborik on the team, and he goes, "What am I supposed to do? Put Gabby out there?" I'm like, "Oh God." So he's like, and so he, put me and Brandon Press and Stu Bickle out there, and Bickle is a defenseman and he's playing center. And so that's kind of how all that went down. There's nothing, we didn't talk about anything when we went out there. I mean, it very well could have just had a normal shift. But then when we went out there, you could just kind of feel it when you're lining up. You could feel something that all of MSG was on their feet. So I think they were anticipating something. Coaches are kind of yelling at each other off to the side, just kind of set the table for it. But yeah, it was cool. I enjoyed it. Like, it was fun. It's probably the loudest I've ever heard a building. And, it's crazy kind of how it all went down.
And then you've got the more recent New Jersey, New York line brawl. Are they going to get like a full Zoom meeting coming up here soon too to talk through all of it, or is it one a little bit dirtier?
I'll narrate it. I'll bring it. Let's see if I can bring everybody together. I don't know if there's enough boxes on Zoom to do that though. Are we capped out? No, I think Zoom, you can have big meetings on there, so we'd have to go Zoom. Yeah, I don't know if StreamYard would be able to support that.
No, yeah, that's definitely more of a Zoom meeting.
But it's kind of funny. So I did I live in New Jersey, and so I do alumni stuff with whether it's the Devils or the Rangers, and the Rangers were like, "Hey, we got this thing before this game on, I think it was April 3rd, I think was when that game was." And they said, "We have something free to go to prior to the game to go hang out with some season ticket holders before the game. Are you down?" "Yeah, I'm good." That works out great. And they're like, "Would you like to stick around for the game?" I'm like, "For sure. I'd love to go and see the game." I don't know who they're playing at this time. This is like 2 weeks prior the game. So then I get on my phone and I look, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're playing the Devils that game. Like, this is, and you kind of knew from the Rempe situation that things were building, and they kind of already have as far as the games with the Devils there. And so I was like, oh yeah, this is the perfect game. And so I went and did a thing. It was say like I don't know, it was like an hour before the game. And then when I was going in, they were like, "Hey, we have another like kind of meet and greet we want to do. It's just kind of right outside the bowl of the arena, like at the main entrance of the MSG. And we're going to have some people meeting you down there to do some photo ops and stuff." I'm like, "All right, that's fine." So I go down there and I'm like, waiting. People aren't there. And they're like, "Oh, they're on their way. They're coming." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I swear to God, if I miss the start of this game, like, and so then they ended up coming there, and I took the pictures, and as literally as soon as we broke free from the picture taken, I turned around and then there's this, the monitors out there and I see 5-on-5 brawl. And I was like, are you serious? I wanted to go home. I didn't want to go to the game. I'm like, oh, I'm so mad right now that I didn't see this. So then I come walking in and I go to I went up to my seats there and all the fans, they're like, Rupp, this is just like in 2012, like whatever. I'm like, yeah, I didn't see it. And, so whatever. I was in the building. The place was electric. It was crazy. I don't think you'd see something like that nowadays, but I mean, that there's quite the history there between the Devils and Rangers.
Do you have to buy a drink at all in Jersey, or at Hobby's Deli? You have to buy a sandwich after you win a Stanley Cup winning goal? Like, do you get some sort of cachet from that? Walking around, or like how does that play out?
I mean, there's a fine line though. There's a lot of Devils fans that I mean, that was the team's last cup, right? Like, so they all treat me great, but there's a lot that think once I transferred to the dark side, play for the Rangers, I was dead to them. So, I had that incident in the 2012 Eastern Conference Finals where I shoved Marty Brodeur.
Yeah, that's true.
So then it was like I was dead to more of them. So yeah, I know it depends who you talk to, but man, I love both organizations. I hated last year when they played each other in the playoffs. Because people are like, who you're rooting for? And I actually, all the teams, Minnesota is one as well. Like all the teams I played for, I want them to have success, right? Like, it's tough when they are potentially going to have success or they're running into each other. Like I felt like last year, if I had to hedge one way, I would say last year's playoffs, I wanted the Rangers to win that series because I felt like this was more the Rangers' time to win a cup, and the Devils was coming, and like right now, they're the only team left that I played for. I'd love to see the Rangers win the cup, but then again, next year, if the Rangers got a cup now, I'd be like, I'd love to see the Devils win the cup. You know what I mean? This next year, I don't really have any allegiance that way. But yeah, I root for all the teams that I've played for, and some of the teams still have guys that I kind of played with.
Well, on the flip side of that, who's the team that everyone comes at you online and says, you hate my team the most? Like, who does Mike Rupp hate?
A lot of people think I hate Toronto. Vancouver fans are honestly, they might be the worst fans out there. I just right now, like Vancouver, like that team's got a horseshoe up there, like all season long. Like, I mean, I love what Rick Talk is doing with the group. They have a lot of individual players that I love. There's certain things about their team I love, but like they're not really that good of a team, but they just find ways. Like it baffles me at how they do this, but they're doing it. So I have to start giving them credit, right? Like they're almost like the Seattle Kraken of last year, where Seattle played, and remember at the beginning of the year, for a good portion of the year, they're like top 5 in goals for. And you're sitting there, you're like, this isn't going to last. Like this is going to run out at some point.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't until a couple rounds into the playoffs. You know what I mean? So like you can sustain that stuff for 82. They're an example. So I thought this year, Vancouver's a little bit like Seattle of last year. Like they're never going to be able to sustain this. They did. And, here they are. They're in the same kind of position. I actually wouldn't be shocked if next year there was a big drop off from Vancouver. But we'll see. I don't know. I think Vancouver fans are very touchy, and Toronto fans are. I think I don't know. I said something the other day. It's like my biggest thing with fan bases is an endorsement of one is not an indictment to another, right? Like if I say, I find that with players too. Like this is what drives me nuts sometimes. If I'm talking about how great Connor McDavid is, that doesn't mean I'm saying Nathan McKinnon stinks. That doesn't mean I'm saying Sidney Crosby stinks. Like, guys, where did you get that from? You know what I mean? Like, if I'm like, wow, Connor McDavid, this guy is worth the watch every night, stay up late on the East Coast, watch this guy. They'll be like, let me know when he's got 3 cups like Sid. I'm like, guys, can we just appreciate how good this guy is? You know what I mean? Like, why does it always have to, like, everything's not a personal shot against you and your team. I'm just saying that this guy is good, you know?
Oh man. Well, I mean, does the team realize that he's good, Rupper? Because he gets a stick to the face, gets fed his lunch, and they just kind of sat there and watched.
I don't know what you guys thought, like, and this got me thinking because, like, I've never thought that there should be different rules for different players. Like, whenever people say that, I'm like, no, get out of here. This is the NHL. Yeah. This is, there shouldn't be different rules. When I saw that, though, I was like, that can't happen because it's Connor. So I don't know. It's like when I see it happen, I didn't like it at all. And honestly, I don't know what I would have done. I actually thought about this the other night. I'm like, I think I would have. I probably could have jumped off the bench, to be honest with you.
I mean, you could have asked if you could have that fight.
Yeah, I
could have. May I have this fight?
Yes. May I leave the bench and go jump somebody? But yeah, no, it was. Here's the thing that gets me, and I don't know if it has had any impact or whatever, but the David Pastrnak situation. I love this stuff because when David Pastrnak goes out and fights Matthew Tkachuk the other day. Yes, I don't want my guys fighting. I don't want David Pastrnak fighting. But there's something to be said, like in a situation where things are getting out of hand, like if a guy like me or a guy that you would expect to respond that way does it, it's still great. It still galvanizes a team. But when a guy who doesn't do that stuff, right? When a guy that's willing to, maybe even swallow the pride of who he is does it, like that's what makes the needle move. It's the fact that David Pastrnak's like, hey, I'll get down and dirty with you guys because I'm one of you. And his post-game comments saying, I'm not afraid of Matthew Tkachuk. I'm not, I can take a punch in the face. The next thing got me where he's like, I'll do anything for these guys. All right, we'll show it. He did. Okay. So when you go to that situation with McDavid the other night, they had Zadorov on the ice. They had Susie on the ice. They Vancouver had tougher guys because Edmonton had all their skill guys. They're trying to get a goal there late. But it doesn't matter. You still stand up and do what's right in that moment for your team. You saw your franchise you almost got decapitated on the play. Yeah. Like you should be flying in there. I don't care if you're Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. It's actually probably better if you're Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. You know what I mean? Yeah. Fly in there and just, I don't know, just jump on the back of Zadorov, something. You know what I mean? And the fact that nothing happened, if you're going to sit there and wait for Evander Kane to get on the ice, I don't know if you're as close as I thought. That stuff kind of bugs me.
Well, I remember, it's like in 2004 when Lecavalier and Ginla fought, right? It was the most momentum swinging thing in that series. Like no one thought Vinny was going to fight, and then he did, and that was like for both teams. It was kind of like a huge lift for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, it's the teams that you're talking. The margin of differences between these teams, the margin of winning and losing, is so thin in this league that certain things like that, and some people are like, oh, that's hero stuff. Like that stuff doesn't matter. Like that's dinosaur stuff. It matters, man. It matters. Like I know I've been there. I remember distinctively being in Dallas playing with Pittsburgh, and we're getting our rear ends handed to us, and we've lost 5 in a row. And Sidney Crosby goes out there and drops the gloves, and I'm sitting there like. I took that as he's the last guy that should be doing this. So that makes me and everybody else feel like, enough's enough, and it kind of, I don't know. But the fact that he showed he's willing to do it, it wasn't like, hey, like I've played for teams before where I've had a skill guy come up to me and say, hey, Rupper, this guy's following me around, driving me crazy. Can you take care of him? And I'm like, I'm not sure that's how this works. You know what I mean? Like, and it's fine. Like you'll do those things because that's your job and your role, but like, just be connected with each other, and if Connor McDavid, or if you're on the ice with Connor and something happens, that's the privilege of playing with Connor. You gotta get uncomfortable, man. The NHL playoffs are about getting uncomfortable. They did not get uncomfortable in that situation. I'm a little concerned. I just don't think that Vancouver's that good, and I think they end up moving on and winning that series.
Yeah, that's fair. And for the Boston-Florida series, like you just talked about different rules for different players. Do you feel like that's what we saw with Sam Bennett jacking Marchand in the face? Like if it's someone that's not Marchand with all his antics, do you think there's more consideration for supplemental discipline?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that was I think that first off, I didn't notice that until it was pointed out, right? And I know on social media it kind of got some run. I heard, in the post-game interview, I think with TNT the other night, Bennett was explaining it, and I actually understand what he's saying, but still, you punch the guy in the face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So whether there's an explanation that makes sense of how that happened, or even by accident, you got to be responsible. I don't know. I don't really think that. I think it's funny from the Bruins fan standpoint to be all up in arms when it happens, because again, you have Brad Marchand on your team, and there's been plenty of things documented, but I don't think none of that comes into play with supplemental discipline. Now, referees and calls on the ice for certain kind of the way that you're perceived by the refs, I think that stuff matters. That's human nature. I don't think it's ever like, oh, we're going to set out to get this guy. But if a guy's flopping, he's not going to get the benefit of the call, right? Like if there's certain things that happen, and I feel like sometimes when you take two gritty players, guys that kind of are dirty, and Marchand and Bennett are that, when those guys collide, I think it's just like, hey, those guys, that's what they do, and there's riffraff happening between the two. That they both want it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think that's maybe the way they look at that. But yeah, I don't think that was ignored because it was Brad Marchand. I don't believe that.
You have a bunch of jerseys behind you. One is Minnesota Wild, and we all know how rational and patient the Wild fan base is here. We're just curious, what's your thought on the state of the Wild right now? You watch the playoffs and the Stars and the Avalanche. You have a lot of really good teams in that division. They have the dead cap hit still for one more year. Just what's your take watching the Wild this year, and what kind of roster they've assembled at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they'll ever admit it, because as soon as you admit something like that, you're kind of letting down the standard of the way you want your team to be carried. But I mean, listen, those buyouts really strap this team, and so I actually think this team has done very well, considering that if you did that to a lot of other teams in this league, those teams would be horrible. Like, honestly, I think there'd be so many teams out there that would be very, very bad. I think Billy Guerin, and again, I think the world of Billy. So, but taking that out of the equation, if it was Joe, if you're running the team, the fact that this team's been able to stay competitive like they have, and honestly, competitive, they've been more than competitive through stretches over the last few years, right? I think it's been great. I think the true test, the true tell will come after this year. And I think that there's a lot of things that come into the equation there. I mean, Kirill's contract's going to be coming up, right? You're going to have, I think they're going to have to show what the future holds. And that's going to be impactful in that situation. And they're going to get to the point here where they're going to be able to get those after this next year, get those off the books. You're going to have the development, another couple years there, what it's been, and then one more year with Matt Boldy, Brock Faber. You're going to kind of figure out, but Kirill needs a running mate. Kirill needs someone else. Like it's pretty one-dimensional as far as how you attack that team, and only one player that scares you from that roster. It doesn't mean there's not a lot of great players doing great things. So I think the moment of truth is going to come after this season. It doesn't mean this season's a write-off. I think this team can make the playoffs. It's hard to think that they can be a Stanley Cup contender until they can operate like every other team financially, and they have not been able to do that. I think it was the right decision they made, the right thing they did. They changed the whole vibe of the franchise, but this is still, they're kind of in purgatory right now, and they'll figure this out after this season. But that's where Billy's job will be judged. The coaching staff, like everything will kind of hit after this season, I think.
Yeah, man. And I grew up a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, and you might not want to spend a lot of time on this because I don't think there's a lot of answers yet, but Ron Hextall did a number on that organization. Can Kyle Dubas get Sidney Crosby another Stanley Cup playoff series win?
I think so because of the way Sid plays and the way he's still capable of playing. I will say this, and this is tough to say because I think the world of Evgeny Malkin. I played with Malkin, Letang, Crosby. I don't know what the summer holds as far as where things are at. There needs to be a moment of truth conversation with Evgeny Malkin and Erik Karlsson. And so the reason why I say this is like Erik Karlsson had the 101 points Norris Trophy in San Jose, whatever, last season, however you want to call it, 2 years ago, whatever. He wasn't listen, his point production was not anywhere near that this year. It was like half of that, but like he had some moment, like he could still play, like he's good. He's good. Evgeny Malkin, he's still good. Like he still could be, I still think he's capable of being a point a game guy. I just think they're at this stage now where those two guys have been able to play. They are so talented. Both of them, I think, are going to be Hall of Famers. They're so talented that they were able to play the way they wanted to play their game always. And I don't really know if they ever developed another way to think the game. That doesn't mean they can't do it. They're super bright. Like they're very smart. They wouldn't be able to do what they have done if that wasn't the case. But I think that there needs to be a situation now where the biggest problem I saw covering the Penguins this year was every shift with those guys in particular, but a lot of the team was played exactly the same way, which in theory sounds great, right? Oh, that's consistency. But like, no, if the score's 2-0 for you, you need to address maybe that shift a little differently than if you're down 0-2. You know what I mean? Like, and it always felt like there was for the next goal. Well, you got to play the scoreboard. You got to play to win. And that's something that they've lacked. And so to answer very long-winded, Crosby playing at his level, yeah, absolutely, man. This team could do a lot, but they're going to have some tweak and some adjustments with some of the other star players because the fact of the matter is they take up a lot of the salary cap. They take up a lot of the ice time. And quite frankly, I don't see that changing. You know what I mean? They're built a certain way, and now they need to make the adjustments in their game to help this team get over the hump.
We have a couple more before I let you go. I know we went over on time here, but one of the treasure in this game is Marc-Andre Fleury, and got a chance to cover him the last couple of years. I know we talked before about Flower. Do you have a favorite Flower story you wanted to share here? I don't know if you were involved in any pranks or just overall a moment that stood out to you.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, Flower's just like this innocent being, and he's awesome. You guys know this. You guys see him all the time. And I mean, he's one of the greatest. I mean, Billy and him were probably my two favorite teammates I ever played with. And I remember we were sitting there and we were talking about old video games on the plane once, and I told you guys about my appetite for Mario games, and we were talking about different Mario games. We were talking about different games on like the regular Nintendo system, the regular NES or whatever. And he chimes in and he goes, "Oh yeah, Super Mario Bros." And I'm like, and it just like, it was like a record, like, and all of us stopped and we turned to him and he goes, "Super Mario Bros." And I'm like, "You mean brothers?" And he goes, "Oh, is it brothers?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, whatever." I'm like, wait, hold on a second. I'm like, "You actually thought it was Super Mario Bros?" Goes, "Yeah, it was always BROS." And I'm like, that was brothers. And he goes, "Oh, I didn't know that." Just like it rolls on next thing. I'm like, I'm so tripped up by this. Like he just wants to roll on like, "Oh, not a big deal." I'm like, "No, this is a huge deal. You literally thought it was Bros the whole time." So he was dying laughing about that. We brought it up. I did a podcast the last couple of years and brought it up with him. He was laughing about it, but he's the best, man. Like just there was that. And then you guys see him in practice and stuff. Like he'd always mess around doing push-ups. And when we're working on breakaways, doing shootouts at the end of practice, he'd do push-ups or put his glove in front of his face and turn his back and then turn around and bang, make a big save real quick. And he would do it. And I remember saying to him, like, his guys would come down and guys get pissed. Like guys would come down to shoot on him and Flower would be dropping down doing push-ups. And the guy's like, screw this. And he'd go to shoot it. And then Flower would jump up and block or save real quick. And he'd run his mouth. And so I said to him, like, hey, like you should do that someday in a game. Like, honestly, like if you did that, like you're in the guy's heads. Whatever they were planning on doing coming down here, they're going to scrap that. You're going to be in their head. And I remember he was like, oh, yeah. So this was like a little bit later in the season, a couple weeks later, and we're going to a shootout. They're getting the dry scrape. The Zambonis are on the ice. And he came over to the bench to get a water, and he grabs his water and he starts backing away towards the net. And he turns. I remember Craig Adams and I are sitting there, and he goes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I go, you're going to do what? And he goes like this. Like I go, no. I was just kidding. And I'm like yelling and he's going back. He's like nodding his head like he's doing it. I'm like, oh my God, I think he's going to do it. And he didn't end up doing it. I think he was messing with us. I was like, I told him afterwards, I'm like, I mean, if you ever decide to do it, it would be, if you did it, it would be incredible. But if you miss, it's going to be the worst thing ever, dude. Like, and I don't know. So he's never done it. Thank God. I'd be so nervous for him.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you go ahead.
No, you're good.
Yeah. So assuming you're a big golfer, right, Rupper?
Golfer?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say big golf. I like golf. I'm not good at it though.
Yeah, we had a question we always wrap up the episodes with from friends of Waggle Golf. I know Scott can take it away for you.
Yeah. So Waggle Golf question. Get your waggleon.com promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order. Rupert, dead or alive, athlete, celebrity, whatever. Who are the three people that would round out your dream golf foursome?
Oh, the dream golf foursome. They have to be real people, like real humans.
I mean, if you want
Mario Luigi.
Yoshi, yeah.
I'm not that big of a nerd to say Mario. I'm just saying. No, I'd go
Mario Bros.
The coolest foursome, and to the other three to round it off. I would say, I think it would be cool. Kurt Cobain. I don't know if that guy can golf at all, but I can't either, so it might be fun. Just the conversation. Like I'd say, like a Kurt Cobain. I would go. Man, I think I'm probably overthinking this. Yeah, I would go. He'd be my musical influence. I'd go with. I think it'd be great. Michael Jordan. I'm a big Michael Jordan guy, and to see him smoking cigars and talking trash would be kind of fun. And then, yeah, I'd probably go with Gretzky. Gretzky was my boyhood idol in hockey. Really weird vibe. I'd love to actually see Kurt Cobain and Michael Jordan kind of talk, and Wayne Gretzky as well. I'd just sit back. I think that'd be some interesting conversation.
Yeah. When you asked if you could do fictional characters, I'm like, all right, he's going to have Luigi in his cart. He's going to have Darth Vader in the other cart. I didn't know where that was going to go.
Napoleon
I thought, like, yeah, maybe not even Mario, but yeah, I don't know. So we'll do that one next time. I'll do the fictional characters.
Yeah, that's fair. Do you have enough money to be on the course with Jordan?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, but no, if I bring Wayne on, I think Wayne would bankroll it.
There you go.
Wayne would watch out for the hockey guys.
Love that.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Rep. I appreciate it. It's been a fun playoffs to watch and cover so far, so I'm sure you're going to be enjoying it the rest of the way. But yeah, really appreciate your time. Sorry we went over a little longer today, but had a fun conversation with you.
Awesome, guys. Anytime. Enjoy the rest of the playoffs, and Fellowship of the Rink. I'll make sure that I watch Lord of the Rings here. before we talk next time.
Yes. Next time we'll review how the movies went for you.
All right, sounds good.